All right, so I've got Animate open, and I've also got my screen split, not my spleen split, to show my reference images for my walk cycle. Let's get started here. I'm going to show some tips and tricks on how to get started with the rough pass walk cycle in Animate. So I'm going to go to New File here, and a couple things I want to make sure of. I've got character animation set, full HD, and 1920, 1080, 24 frame rate. Action script 3.0 is what I want, and I'll go to create. Now that I've got that, I can kind of zoom out a little bit so I can see what I'm working with, and let's go. First thing I want to do is rename this layer rough pass. I just made it one word because that's the way Animate likes. So I'll hit enter and just says rough pass. That's fine. What I want to start with is just a rough sketch of my character. I'm going to start with the contact pose. I want to open this up to about frame 17. So I'm going to go to frame 17 and I'm going to press F5. And what that does, it opens up a blank keyframe all the way through. Now I'm going to use a brush tool here, and I'm going to get the basics down for my character. So I'm going to sketch him out, and it just has to be a rough pass. We're working on proportion here. We're working on getting the pose right to make sure that the rhythm of their walk cycle is going to look good. And so just kind of roughing this in. Most important things are getting the arms and legs in the right position. This leg right here is going to be going forward. So I'm going to sketch this out so my leg comes down and the heel is touching the ground. The back leg is going to be slightly bent. It comes down, and will bend back this way. And the toe is actually kind of on the ground like that. The arm furthest back is coming down and kind of a little bit forward. So kind of sketch that out. And then my arm back here is going to be going backwards and down this way. All right, so I've got a good kind of roughed in area here, roughed in sketch. I'll go back and with an eraser and tidy this up so it looks like it's actually up front. Any other things you want to kind of tidy up a little bit? It is a rough pass, but you want it to also make sense and actually look like your character in some sense. So, because this is going to be used as a reference for later drawings and other steps for your walk cycle. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to create a new layer here. And I'm going to drop this down below. And I'm going to call this guides. And with my guides, I'm going to make sure just that layer is selected. I'm going to create a guide. I'm just going to use a regular line tool. I'm going to hold shift and draw a line out this way. I need this guide to be on my character's head. So I'm going to move this guide down. Oops, I don't want to bend it. Just want to select it and then move it down so it's lined up right. Okay, now I'm going to Control C and Control V so I have a copy of that guide. I'm going to put it down here at the feet because I want my character to always look like they're on the ground. And as each pose moves along, your character is going to be slightly getting lower and then higher. And it's not that they're stretching, it's that their legs are bending. And so that's going to reposition their body. Now that I've got that, I'm going to lock that layer down and come back up to my image here. And I want to add a couple references for like which arms are forward and which arms are backwards. So I'm going to kind of lightly sketch in some things here. Like a little shadow, like this is the back leg, this is the back arm. And so I'm just kind of putting a little shadow in this just so I can tell. Now I'm ready for my next pose. I'm going to animate by twos, and I'm going to put my next pose, which is low, on this frame here by pressing F7. Now I lost my reference. I can't see where he was before. So I'm going to turn on my onion skin. That will help. Now this next pose is a low pose, so I'm going to create him in the same place, but he's just going to be slightly lower. And so this is where it gets kind of tricky. You want to try to make sure your character is in basically the same proportion should apply, but your character is going to be slightly lower. Arms and legs are going to be slightly shifted a little bit. So this arm that is forward is going to be a little bit more down and not angled back as much. This arm right here on the back arm is going to be a little bit closer to the body and not bent forward maybe as much either. This forward leg is the biggest difference because it is now bent a lot more and comes down this way. And this is now flat and planted on the ground. The back leg is stretched out further and only the toe is actually on the ground now. So it's going to take a little practice, take some time to get this right. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to sketch in this guy and sketch in this shadow for this guy. And I'm going to move on to my next pose, F7. I'm going to continue on. Well, I've already got that kind of done here. And so I've got this. Once you get these first poses down, here's what I would do next. I would create a new layer, drop it down underneath your rough pass, call this temporary. And since your first 4 poses are going to be essentially the same as your last 4 poses, I'm going to select these frames. I'm going to hold Alt and drop it down. I'll drop it down and I'm going to drop it over. So I'm going to lock this down and I'm going to right click on this, choose properties, change the opacity to about 25, 20, okay. And I'm going to essentially use these first 4 poses, these copies of these first 4, but I'm going to switch the arms and the legs so that this arm is going to appear like it's behind, and this arm I will draw so it looks like it's forward, and the same thing with the legs. Once you do that, what you'll end up with is basically this. You'll have one like that. That's already finished. So here's one where I've taken that as a guide and shifted this arm back, this leg forward, and then you'll end up with, once you're done, this layer doesn't even matter. Your temporary layer doesn't matter. And you'll end up with a full walk cycle, roughed in walk cycle with your arms and legs in the right position for all the frames. And so that's what we'll be looking for to get this set up right. Now to turn this in your rough pass, you'll go File, Export, and you'll export this GIF. Make sure it is GIF, by the way, and change this. You can change your matte if you want to a different color. Now, whatever you show in a GIF is going to be what's visible on your layers. So my rough pass is visible and my guidelines are visible, which is important. If it's not, make sure that is right before you start the next step. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to a folder that I like, that makes sense for my class. And I'm going to go to character, Fulton. I'm going to rename this Fulton _rough and hit save. And once that's done, I'm going to go check that out, make sure it's saved right, and make sure everything is in its right place. There, character, Fulton, and here's my rough. So I see him walking, and that's perfect. That's good walk cycle. His reference is moving. He's got good motion. There we go. Now, don't just trash this. Whatever it is that you have, you want to save your project file as your name and walk cycle. So save as and do the right thing again. And choose the right classes, right thing, character, Fulton _walk, and save. So that is always going to be saved, and I can continue my progress with this when I need to. And that's pretty much it. Those are the steps for this first part with getting that rough pass down.